Everybody, I'd like to call the Water and Utilities Committee meeting to order. What we have on the agenda tonight is a discussion, but we met last month and talked about the Arcadis water system report they provided us with recommendations, and at the end of that meeting I asked our city engineer, Patrick Patton, to review that and review any other projects he might already have or knows it's coming in the future, and merge those together for a 5-year plan so we can, as council, have an idea of what we're looking at and something that we could pass on towards utility rate review so they can look at what we're going to commit to and what kind of dollars we're going to need in the future, and that way they can review that and any rate increases that are pending and just be able to plan for the future. So I will turn this over to Pat if you want to go through this. I know we just kind of got this, so if you want to
Sure.
start, and we'll just go through it.
Okay. I have a memo there, a cover page. If anybody needs it, we have some extra copies of this up here. But we did finish our 5-year plan recommendation. That'd be on page 1, but it's the attachment to the memo. The way we came up with this, we based it primarily on Arcadis' recommendations. We followed most of them, but not all. Some we backed out for various reasons. And I say we, it was Nino and Bill McGarvey and I met, Keith also as part of our group there. Anyhow, we came up with this list that's shown on page 1 of the attachment. I don't know if we need to go through project by project or...
Yeah, I mean, we'll, well, I know we had a couple hot items in the recommendation. For instance, different areas that had high low pressures, high head loss areas, the fire flow capacity. I want to make sure that we can go skip around. I mean, look at in 2013, if you, I don't know if we need to hit everything, but
Okay.
I see in 2013 we're looking at spending 1.8 million.
Correct.
And this group here, I know we probably had most of these already on our scope anyhow.
Yeah.
Was there anything new that you added in 13 or maybe bumped up because of?
Would really be the Wadsworth Road. That's the one where we got the grant for water line replacement. That was not part of Arcadis' list. So that would be one of the water line replacement projects.
Okay.
Gunnison as well was not part of their list. That is a project driven by the pavement condition that we got a grant for, so we're going to replace the water line as well. As is Highland, those 3 at the bottom. The other, most of those in the middle are downtown historic area, and that was part of Arcadis' list. West Smith, which is part of the project we're going to be doing. And then I guess I'm going bottom to top for some reason. Fair Road, South Court, interior coating were also part of Arcadis' list.
And Pat, how strongly do you feel, I mean, there's quite a list of projects here. Mm-hmm. How strongly do you think you feel we'll get these done?
Well, most of these are planned and done and ready to go.
Okay.
If you go down Fair Road, we have a consultant doing those plans, so that was a definite. South Court, we're probably going to be coming to council for a recommendation, have a consultant do that as well here shortly. West Smith is before council to bid it, so that's good to go. We just submitted a request this week to council for the design for the square area one, so that takes all the rest of them.
Pat, can I interrupt you there? Can you just go over a little bit more when you say the square area? I know we've talked about it in the past. What are we going to be doing as far as the water?
It's replacing the water lines in conjunction with ODOT's urban paving program. So the blocks I have listed there are the ones we're proposing to do this year.
Okay.
And that came out of Arcadis' recommendation to a couple of those for hydraulic reasons. We're increasing the size of the water line. Some of those are just purely due to age. We have water lines that are approaching 100 years old.
And clarification, these are under the street, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right.
So before they come in to repave it, we
Right.
want to get those taken care of.
Mhm.
And we know they're bad. We've had leaks at
Right.
a number of them, as well as the age.
Thank you.
Sure.
And these will address some of the concerns in there, a water pressure issue uptown, that's
Not uptown, there's the pressure's not a problem, flow has
Flow,
always been a problem.
okay.
Yes.
This
that'll
will
be
correct all
addressed.
that.
And moving on, 2014 West Smith is the next phase. At State, that's actually part of the same project. In terms of accomplishing those plans as far as we're concerned, they're complete, but that's kind of in ODOT's hands, so I'm sure there'll be some give and take, but anyhow, those plans are well underway. Emergency backup connection, Arcadia's recommended a study, and that's in response to the EPA's letter to us about establishing some sort of backup for our system.
Mhm.
Then Lake Road, that'll, similar to what we did last year on Lake. And then moving on, most of the rest of them, if not all the rest of them, were as recommended by Arcadis. We spread out some of their recommendations. We're not doing as much in those final 3 years as they had recommended, and for various reasons. On the second page of the handout, or the attachment, kind of lists the projects that are not included in our recommendation, for a bunch of different reasons there. But we feel this list is pretty doable. It's really one of the points of my memo. This list, average cost for the 5 years is about $1.2 million per year. The past 5 years, if you look at the last page of the attachment, we've averaged a little over $1.06 million per year in improvements. So it's really not that much more than we've already done these past 5 years. Certainly it is more, but it's in the ballpark.
Nice report.
Now, I guess the big, page 3 of the attachment there is kind of the summary. That top table kind of shows what we have now for funding. First column is as per our 5-year plan for the water fund. We have a total for the 5 years, a total about $830,000, $165,000 a year. Second is from the 108 fund. The first 2 years are loaded because of the Smith and Lake Road projects, which are huge. The rest, I use $200,000. We've actually spent about $350,000 a year over the past several years in water line improvements out of 108, but I thought that would be a little more conservative. And then what I believe is the balance of the bond issue. Keith is going to have to verify that. But anyhow, all total, we have about $4.3 million available over the next 5 years, which is $868,000 a year already budgeted. The bottom table, I showed Arcadis' recommendation and ours. Ours comes to a little under $6 million for the 5 years, which is about $1.2 million a year. If you do the math there, we're about $1.6 million short, which is about $330,000 a year. And one thing I'd point out, in 2013 and 2014, we actually have a surplus of funds. The big hit comes in 2017, where we're almost $1 million short. I don't know how that plays into the committee's recommendation in terms of possible increases in rates. Certainly want to wait and see how things play out over a couple of years before or not, but just wanted to note that.
Now, what about, maybe I missed it here because I kind of jumped quick. What about the line on Foot Road? And wasn't there a question, or maybe it was Granger, abandoning
Yeah.
a connection between, I thought they said Foot in the.
No, it was
Was it Granger?
Yeah.
Do we have that in?
Not part of the, yeah, it's 2017.
Okay,
Abandoned existing
No.
20 and 24 inch.
so that's on Granger then.
It's Granger, the biggest, those actually go through the Lake Medina area, the
Mhm.
20 and 24, those are the big pipes that we really don't need anymore, and therefore don't want to maintain them.
Now, how's that gonna, we have some customers along Granger, how's that gonna affect them?
Well, that's something we have to work out with the county.
I mean, is this gonna be something similar to Huffman Road where we had that, I know that Huffman Road line was in pretty bad shape. I don't
Right.
know how, I'm sure these are in better shape than that,
It's
but,
in better, I don't think it's great, but it's not nearly what Huffman Road was.
I mean,
But, you know,
eventually.
we can't walk away from customers.
I understand that.
Now, that 20 and 24, there's no customer, that's just a big loop. It used
Right.
to be the primary feed, so once we work out the hydraulics, we can abandon those.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have a shortfall, and let's, I mean, the whole purpose of this was to see where we're at, see where we need to be. I mean, I know Arcadis gave us a rating of a C+ maybe when they were here, and I know we wanna, I mean, we continue to make improvements, but,
Right.
you know, I know we wanna move forward on some of these, but, it's gonna come down to, recommendations on the rate increases, because obviously we have a shortfall here, and we're gonna have to find additional revenue, but,
We do, again, just to point out, the shortfall doesn't hit for a couple of years. I don't know if we should plan for it now and then
Well, I-
increase, or we wanna wait a year to see what happens, see how, these are all based on estimates. They may
Right.
come in lower,
right, may come in higher though.
they may come in higher, that's true.
Keith had a comment.
Keith?
We do have some good news on the funding side of things. The bond refinancing that we did at the end of last year saved us about $70,000 a year in debt service in the water fund. If we put that 70 to 80, if we put that $70,000 to $80,000 over the next 5 years into these capital projects, that's $350,000 to $400,000, basically covers what you're looking at on the shortfall in a little bit. And then the other long-term thing, which Pat's aware of and we've talked about before, is the debt service payments, the big sheet that I gave you. Important column to look at on that is the far right. For the next 10 years, from now through 2022, we pay a little over $1 million a year in debt service. Then for 2023 through 2027, that drops off to about $550,000, and then starting in 2028, it drops off to just $85,000. Or, pardon me, I'm looking at the wrong road, 2027, it drops off to $85,000. Because of that, so over the course of the 2020s, we're gonna gain about $1 million in cash flow to use towards our capital projects. I mean, if we look at our capital projects on a long-term basis, if we can get ourselves to 2022, we're in really good shape after that, because we pull in $500,000 and then 4 years another $500,000 per year for these kind of capital projects. That'll give us the ability to do a lot more projects that we just don't have the cash flow for right now.
Good.
We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're already spending all of what we need when we get there, and then when those debt service amounts fall off, we
Right.
can use that rather than having piles of extra money.
Right. And that's a decent distance here in time to wait for, but, I mean,
It is, but I mean.
I don't want
for
us-
water-
no, I
water,
understand what you're saying.
It's 10 years, I mean, it's.
Sure.
It's coming, so.
right. And Pat, I appreciate you putting this all together, and.
I had a lot of help.
What's that?
I had a lot of help,
Good.
not just me.
Good. Well, I appreciate everybody that took part putting this together. It gives us a little clarity on knowing what direction we're going, and it gives, like I said before, a utility rate review the information they need to make an educated decision on. And these are all necessities. I mean, these aren't, I mean, this is, I don't want the public to think, hey, we just want to, I mean, these are necessities that we need
No.
to make our system.
Either necessity due to failing material, equipment, pipe, or improvements needed for water quality in our system.
Do you have any questions,
No,
Danny?
I mean, except you did an excellent job, or you and your team did an excellent job. Mayor, did you have anything to have you feel comfortable with the project list?
Right, I think back to Mark's point, my concern was, and part of it was a misunderstanding, that can we handle this volume of work? Patrick and Fred being a two-man team there, Some of it's engineered already. Patrick's comfortable that we can engineer some of it and contract out the rest, and that there's really no reason because of that to delay doing these projects. And the further we delay them, the further in the hole we are of trying to get these things accomplished. So after we discussed it today, Patrick submitted this, and I met with Patrick and Nino both, and I wholeheartedly support what they're recommending. Thank you.
Any questions from any other council members sitting out in the audience? Anything from the public?
Church? Oh, yes, church, yeah, I'm sitting in the back of church. My only comment is I see that, finally we're gonna have to make some decisions about funding, and I don't know, just one quick question, any of these projects, can they be pushed out, Pat, to maybe meet where the funds start freeing up at the end of 2023?
I mean, anything could, they could. I don't know that I'd recommend that.
Okay, that's what, I wanted that honest assessment there.
If push comes to shove, yeah, nothing's gonna fall apart in 2017 if one of these isn't done. But we're that much farther behind.
Okay.
So loud.
Anything else?
Are we gonna discuss the water rates, or?
No, I mean, I wasn't planning on it tonight, and that's,
Well, we're starting budget process for these funds right now, so, I mean, I think
Yeah.
this is, we've gone over their recommendation, and I think they'll prepare the budget based on this, and then we'll come back, and that'll be the point at which I put together rates, because if that comes in higher, okay. You
well,
know.
that's another, I mean, that's obviously crucial. And
Right.
I mean, I think it's a couple step process here. One, find out the capital improvements, and we have a couple of rate increases that were, one in particular, right? I don't, is it just
We had two.
two?
We had
That's
two,
what
went into effect. And the other piece of good news, actually.
No, I mean, those went in effect. I'm talking about the ones we already notified for,
2013.
Oh,
20,
coming from
right,
them,
July and
right,
July.
right. Which are not as big as the last ones, but still, that comes into play, and the overall budget as well, and just putting that all together, like I said, and then passing that to utility rate review, so they can look at it, come with their recommendation, then council and administration can look at it, and then decide what we're gonna do.
The other piece of good news that you should be aware of, in addition to the debt service.
Full of good
savings-
news tonight, I like that.
I know. Usually I don't get to do that. In addition to the savings on the debt service, we had a very, very high use year last year in water. Revenues came in over what I projected.
Mhm.
We sold significantly more water. We hit, Pat said it was a record in sales. And the trend is really reversed there. Now, we'll see how long, how that holds, but for
It
3
was
or
a
4
dry
years,
summer, but
yeah, the
keep going.
drought has to do with it. See, I mean, you gotta, some of it's seasonal, some of it's weather, but for 2 or 3 years, we had dropped every year. So for 2 or 3 years in a row, we're dropping every year, and you start looking at the revenue estimate saying, well, we gotta back this off. Well, now for 2 or 3 years, we've been going up every year,
Mhm.
a little bit. Now, we'll see, if we have a rainy summer, we won't match last year. But a fair amount of that was industrial use also, which is not really so much subject to weather, that's more
Sure.
business conditions. As long as that holds up, a third of our costs is, basically 2/3 of our costs are not impacted by how much water we sell. If we sold twice as much or half as much, that 2/3 really wouldn't change. So when use goes up, revenue goes up, and only a third of the expenditures go up, the other 2/3 stay where they are. So it's a very good thing for us to sell more water, and we did.
Mhm.
We'll keep tracking that.
My wife will continue to do her part.
I mean, you live on a lake.
I know, but the watering where you do is not close to the lake, it's up by the house, so.
All right.
One other quick question in reference to water breaks. How we doing now? I mean, I've obviously seen the trucks all around town. I mean, how are we doing this year compared to last year, years prior? Have you seen a increase in water?
There was an uptick in the summer. we talked about the trend when, basically because the volume's up, but as recent weeks, they've diminished a little. So the last one was there at Southport and Smith when they worked that one. We haven't had anything there in the last couple weeks.
And then the line that's up by the hospital, I've noticed that,
Bill and I and Pat talked about that, monitoring. You know, you see the frequency right there by the east of the cemetery.
mhm.
We usually have that area that is impacted, and then going up right in front of Albert and the hospital. It seems like they at the same time every year, and we're not sure.
And I really don't see, I mean, do you see us doing a full-blown replacement through there at sometime
some
after the
point.
5-year period of, after this, you see it, you know, in 18, 19 or
Yeah,
something?
you know, and I guess maybe I should comment on that. Some of these we call out, Arcadis called out on their recommendation, for instance, Harmony, North Harmony. I think Elmwood is another one. Those are where we have a history of a lot of breaks, so we plan on doing it, but we need to be flexible. If East Washington still keeps on having issues,
Mhm.
we may have to push that one ahead of the others.
Right.
Delay those.
Okay.
That's the one thing where we gotta be flexible, we gotta be able to respond, and
Sure.
so it may.
Okay.
As a rule of thumb, Pat, we kind of talked about between you and I and Keith and the mayor for replacing 8-inch water line, just the material and the installation of that line is about $100 per foot as a general rule of thumb. And that's not the concrete though, that's just water line and the
Correct.
fittings. So that gives you an idea, $250,000.
Do we need to find a new supplier, or, no, I'm just kidding. $100 per foot, huh?
Ballpark, I mean, that's just a.
Installed, that's,
Right.
So you can get an idea of that annual replacement, that $250,000 is what we want to be done with that.
And I noticed that, you know, some of the past problem areas, there are some on this list. That one in particular that services our hospital, I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
and I know we're not losing sight of it, but I just wanted to get an update on that and any other ones that. Yeah, okay, well, I mean, I knew this was gonna be, you guys did all the work, it was just a simple meeting to have something in place here and for this committee to review, and we're not voting on anything, it was just more discussion. I don't know if anybody had any other,
We're gonna mark this down to give Mr. Coin.
He needs to learn from that.
anybody else have
Half an
any
hour, yeah.
questions or comments here before we close it? All right, thanks again, Pat, and your team
Thank you.
for putting this together, and we guys, you know, we appreciate everything you guys do to
Yeah,
keep our
and-
systems flowing.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If you could, thank you and thank the fire department too for the issue that you emailed us today about the West Washington. Thank them, that's very nice.
All right, thank you very much, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.